January 13th, and it's 5 days till the next Lions game. City Clerk, the roll call, please.
Salvia.
Here.
Bixson.
Here.
Hauser.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
King.
Here.
Sage.
Here.
Trent.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, moving on to our agenda. Is there any public comment for anything that is not on our agenda tonight? I don't see any callers online.
Good evening, Council. How are you today?
Good evening.
Good. Happy New Year.
Could you
So-
state your name for
Oh,
the
yeah, sorry.
record?
Ann Peterson, 233 North Alice.
Thank you.
In the beautiful city of Rochester. I just came tonight just to give a quick update of the Rochester sales that took place last year. And I know you do receive information, but I wanted to give you real information. So the city of Rochester actually had 126 sales, residential sales. Median price range was $625. And we had 104 condo sales, but 34 of those were rental leases that took place. So basically, that's about it. Pretty kind of slow, but not slow. Prices are pretty good. Still a lot of properties selling. Some of them are getting surprisingly higher. Quality not so much, but can't do anything about it. Price is what a buyer's willing to pay. Hi.
Quick
Yes, Debbie?
question.
Yeah.
What, do you have the average time on market?
Average time on market right now is about, 37 days.
Yeah, I saw 37, 38
Wow,
days.
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
But that is on, that's on the residential. The condos, some of them sit a little longer. No, it's about the same, 35. It all depends, but that was like leases too, so those kind of confuse the numbers a little. Yes, Marilyn?
Thanks.
Yes, is there like an average condo sale?
Oh, yeah, the average condo sale is about $214.
Okay, and then one more question. So is it 7% now, the mortgage?
As a matter of fact, there is not, as far as commission?
No,
mortgage.
7% on
Oh, they
the,
don't.
on the interest,
Oh, no,
Mortgage
well, it
rate.
depends. So, interesting, everybody wants to know, hey, what's an interest rate today? Well, then I could say, hey, what's your credit score? It all based off your credit score, so if you don't have good credit today, you're not going to get really good, and I mean over 780, and you'll probably get about a 6%, but you have to have higher. And anyone, if you're really looking to buy a home and you don't have really good credit score, you could do an FHA. FHA mortgages right now, you're getting a lot less of a percentage for the interest rate, but conventional, they will ding you. So that, also you get a point, and not a point, but you also get a hit if you're buying a condo with a mortgage. There's a liability.
Oh,
And that's why you see so many rentals instead of sales sometimes for condos.
wow.
But yeah, so
That's
overall, but,
interesting.
I guess if you really wanna know, the highest sales price was over on Seventh or Ludlow, whichever one you wanna call it. That was, 2.468 million.
Okay,
That was our highest sale. Our highest sale condo was, 650.
that's great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Those
much.
were on Main Street.
That was great.
so,
Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you, Ann.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's very
Nice to
good,
see
and, yeah, you as well. So in the newspaper, I love it when Brian Barnett gives an update on his city as well. So he's going to be debt-free pretty soon. Wanted to know how soon maybe we will have that same report in the newspaper.
That's-
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the approval of the minutes. We're looking for consideration of the minutes of the regular meeting of December 16th, 2024.
I wasn't at the meetings.
Counselor Trent?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of December 16th, 2024.
Motion by Trent,
Support.
second by Counselor Hauser.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
Salvia,
Yes.
Vixen,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones.
An interesting question, since I wasn't at the meeting.
You can
Yes.
still, you can
So-
still approve.
I can still vote yes. Okay, yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Motion passes. Moving on to the approval of the consent agenda, consideration to approve Italian Happenings Car Show, which is July 27th, 2025, and receipt of the check register.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion by Counselor Sage,
Also,
support by Counselor Trent. City Clerk, please.
Salvia,
Yes.
Vixen,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. We have no old business. We have no public hearings. We have no legislative deliberation. We're moving on to reports and regular business. So now we're going to have a presentation by Tom Colas of Miller Canfield regarding bonding information. As we are coming into the budget season here in the city of Rochester, we're going to discuss some bonding. Looks like we have Treasurer Maggio also joining.
Great. And you have Andy talking to on some,
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Here's your set.
great. Well, good evening. Nice to see some of you again and some of you for the first time. I'm Tom Colas with Miller Canfield. I've had the pleasure of being the city's bond counsel for a number of years. So the discussion is the consideration of a notice of intent resolution to issue capital improvement bonds, to finance certain capital improvements in the city. Just as a refresher for some of you and some for others, this would be the first step in the process. So this would authorize publication of a notice in the paper indicating the city's intent to issue bonds for these purposes. It would set the maximum dollar amount, the maximum duration, and it would have a general description of the projects that you're looking to accomplish. It provides in that notice a right of referendum. So the city could not issue the bonds if a petition was filed within 45 days, signed by not less than 10% of your registered electors, indicating that they wanted you to put it to a full vote. But once you get past that process, we would come back to council for actual approval of the bond resolution. So again, this just initiates the process. You come back after that period of time expires and then actually authorize the issuance of the bonds. So that bond resolution would be much more comprehensive. It would have, when principal and interest would be payable, if the bonds could be called early for redemption, the security for the bonds, how the bonds would be sold, the process for selling the bonds. So that would be a much more comprehensive resolution, as opposed to just this few-page resolution. So the resolution really accomplishes two things. It authorizes the publication of the notice in the paper, directs the clerk to publish the notice, and it also states the city's intention to reimburse itself from bond proceeds to the extent you spend any of your own city funds on the project prior to those monies being available. So if there's any type of design or engineering services, or if you actually, acquire some capital items from city funds, you could then reimburse from the bond proceeds when they're available. The IRS just says, if you're gonna do so, we want you to state your intention to do so. And so that's why the resolution covers that component of it also. I know that Andy Campbell from Benzinski is gonna talk more about the actual process, the proposed schedule, the actual, how the numbers get generated for sizing a bond issue. And so, I don't know if you want
Yeah, I
to bring
think
up
my
Andy right now,
one's
or?
out of order. Just for everyone that isn't city council, so everyone's aware, we have, through goals and objectives, identified about $2.5 million for to be funded through a bond issuance. So we're looking at the skate park for $500,000, looking at the community house at $700,000, and then utilizing the remaining balances for like the potentially either Clinton River Trail or road projects. We know we don't want to have the money be unallocated, and there's plenty of road projects that can always be done, and the infrastructure as well. So that's what we're looking at this issuance to be in total. When we looked at it in the budget during goals and objectives, that's where the $188,000 came in. The actual amount will be I guess, whatever the interest rate ends up being and the final amount that council's going to authorize at the end of it. So once it's issued, we'll have a final amount, but for budget purposes, we utilized about 4% and the 2.5 million to come up with 188,000 payments, so that'll fluctuate. But we had that in the budget now in anticipation for these projects. If there isn't any other questions on this part, I can have Andy come up. He's our he's our financial advisor on the municipal side, so both him and Tom work together to get everything from the calendars, the schedules, the resolutions, the notices, make sure everything is done the way it's supposed to be, the bond rating calls scheduled, all of that sort of thing, so.
Counselor King?
Yeah, I just have one question. I know the community house, we have 700,000 earmarked here for the project, but there's another, I believe it's 2 million coming from the state. Do we have an update on the progress there? And I just want to make sure if we're moving forward with this, that is also,
Yeah,
going forward.
There's no holdups with it, it's just a matter of timing on Treasury. So the latest info they gave us was anytime between mid to end January is when we should receive funds. All the paperwork's been submitted back in October. It's just waiting as they kick off and into their fiscal year to actually get around to start allocating the money to the project. So we expect a notice anytime within the next 2 weeks. And what they do is he said they just send us money. So we're just gonna get a notice that, hey, money's coming, and then we can look and see what they're depositing, and then we'll be able to start that.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Sage?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So Anthony, you mentioned the trail or road projects, whereas the memo says and. So I'm just trying to get a clarification on that.
Yeah, it's for the balances. So on the trail, we don't want to say it's dedicated specifically for it by itself, because with Oakland County, Crispin's working phenomenally to try to get us 100% of that funded by grants. So what we want to be able to do is say, okay, well, we know we're not going to do grant funding for the first additional grant funding for community house. We know we have that allocation. Skate park is just as it is. There's no grants for that one. So it's the balances. If the county doesn't come through and we're going to have to spend some money for it, then that's what it's going to go to. But if she comes through and says, hey, I'm able to find all of the funding for you, you don't need to spend that money. Now we're going to shift that and do other capital projects with it.
Wouldn't it say or? Sorry.
Okay. So we would have the ability to identify those road projects?
Absolutely, yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
Thank you. Continue on.
All right, Andy is our financial advisor, so he will then go through, what did you want me to start with? Did you want anything on here?
Yeah, the 24, the
24.
so the pretty graphic one. We'll start with that one.
Got it.
While he's bringing that up, Andy Campbell with Benzinski and Company now. I've seen, good to see everybody. If you remember, my team was at a different firm for a long time. We switched firms here in July, so we look forward to continue working with the city. I joined, there was what we call a statement of qualifications. It goes through more about the company. I joined Bobby Benzinski and his team over at Benzinski and Company, who was our major competitor for a long time, but can go into it another day if you have any questions on why, but essentially we just want to continue working with Michigan communities and continue what we're doing, what we've been doing for a long time, which is bond issues and rate studies. Tonight, I just want to kind of talk through a couple things here real quick and then obviously take questions. This is a little bit just so you have some information on like what we're doing and why. We just put this together so you can kind of see if you want to go more into the granular details of this process. It's called an open market bonding process. We will be getting, as Anthony said, a bond rating. We help you go through the process of getting these bonds rated. You do have to get the bond rated, even though the city has a current outstanding rating of AAA, which is the best rating you can get. We do have to go through this process and get these individual bonds rated. One of the things that Anthony talked about was like how to maintain the AAA rating. From everything that we've seen from Standard & Poor's, you are in very good shape before and after this bond issue to continue with the AAA rating. There has been no notice from Standard & Poor's that you're on a watch or surveillance or anything. Just as some overarching dollars and numbers here, your overall debt limit is 10% of your state equalized value, plus there's add-ons, which gets confusing, but it's approximately about $150 million. That is your overall debt limit as a community. You as a city currently have about $23 million outstanding. There are some debt issuances out there that do count towards the $150 million cap. Those are done primarily for you guys through OMID, the Oakland-Macomb Interceptor District. Some of the debt issue they do does affect your debt limit depending on how they do it. But overall, you have well over $100 million of overall debt limit. And from everything, again, I can't guarantee this, but like from everything that we've seen from Standard & Poor's in terms of the surveillance and the questions that they've been asking, the debt limit and issuing $2.5 million wouldn't even be on their radar. They would be more concerned if you added a 0 plus. If you're doing 30, 50 million, they'd probably start asking questions about what's the plan for the future. Even that, you'd probably still be fine. But 2.5 million is not going to come anywhere close to hitting their radar on debt load. Overall, just on like some of the housing stuff, just so you know, like your rating being AAA is a very exclusive club in Michigan because it's very difficult with our economy and our reliance on, traditionally the reliance on the auto industry. So there are not many communities in the state that have a AAA rating. Your housing value, the discussion before us is a very big part of that. So it's good that you have very good property values. Your residential community, that works well for you. You are near a city center, the greater Detroit area. That actually works very well for you. I think those are the major ones. Management's a big one too. You have professional management. Anthony, Nick, and the team do a great job in keeping Standard & Poor's updated, and capital improvement planning, and everything is very professional from start to finish. So from our standpoint, we would hope and we would expect that the AAA rating is maintained for this bond issue. That is the timetable. There's a second page that you'll see in the packet as well. We are anticipating a sale, I think it was March 27th. Yep, March 27th, with a closing April 17th. As Anthony talked about, right now we're estimating 4% interest rate over 20 years with payments about $188,000. Those payments, like the number that's highlighted kind of in the orangish color, we're going to work with Nick, Anthony, Marcy, and the team to make sure that the bond issue is structured to your budget. That just gives you an idea if you were to do level payments, which may be what you want, but we will make sure to structure the debt to your budget and make sure that you can maximize your bond payments there. As of right now, just to give you an idea on the estimate of interest rate, right now we're seeing 20-year bond issues below 4%. They're right around like 3.85 to 3.97 was the last couple. They're not AAA communities either. So we are expecting, as long as the market stays relatively stable over the next couple months, that the 4% is conservative, but not too conservative to where we use it for budget numbers. We are hoping that it will be at 4% or lower is what it comes down to. I think that was pretty much it. The last thing on here, there was a question that Anthony brought up as well. As part of our job as the city's financial advisor, we do constantly look at your current debt to see if there's any refunding or commonly called refinancing opportunities. There are none currently. We do keep an eye out for those coming up, but you do have very good interest rates on your current debt. Most of the bond issues have coupon rates between 2 and 3%, which would be very difficult to refund or refinance even if they were eligible, but a lot of them are not eligible currently for that. But we do keep an eye on that every year for the city. Questions?
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, can I ask a quick question? So in theory, if let's say we got everything for the trail paid for, so then in theory, we really only need $1.2 million. How much penalty would it be if we just, because to me, I don't support bonding for roads because that's like an infinite thing, right? So can we borrow 1.2? I mean, what's the penalty if we didn't do that? And can we make that decision 45 days from now or whatever?
So you can, yeah, so on the current timetable, that decision has to be made by about, well, you have the bond resolution going March 10th. That's pretty much the night that you'd make that decision. So at that meeting, when the bond resolution is adopted on March 10th, you would make the decision on the final amount. That's, you can move it back if you want to. If you say, hey, we're still not sure about the Clinton River Trail thing, let's move the sale back a month and let's make the decision then. Just know that the sale would move with that. But you do have until March 10th on the current timetable to make that decision. The current bond process allows for you to make that decision of whatever amount you want. Now, there's scalability in bonds, so at 2.5 million, relatively speaking, you're gonna have all of the market participants bidding, especially being a AAA community. If you get down, a lot of people think it's down below 2 million. It's kind of like below 1.5. You start to get some brokers, the intermediaries that resell the bonds. Some of them start to drop because they start doing the numbers on how much money they're gonna make, and it may not be worth it to their portfolio. So I will say, just in terms of a very rough number, if you get below 1.5 million, you're gonna start seeing less bidders. You're still gonna have bidders. You're still gonna get the bonds sold as long as everything stays stable, but you will have less bidders. If you go below 1 million, that's where it gets really sketchy, because now you've put the brokers in a position where they're gonna make very little money. You may only get 1 or 2 bids, because they don't really see that as an opportunity to make money on with the reselling fees, so.
Would the interest rate be the same at the lower number?
In theory, it would be, as long as you stayed above 1 million. If you go below 1 million, there's going to be a premium.
Thank you.
Counselor Jones.
I was gonna ask similar questions, and I agree with, Mayor Pro Tem on, why would we ask for more than what we've already have a definite plan? So just to confirm, so you're saying if it was 1.2 compared to 2.5, interest rate would be the same, and does it matter how many people are bidding on it? What is the difference of more people?
So,
If you can explain that.
So in theory, you could have 1 of 2 situations. If the broker that's gonna give you the best bid, let's say it's X, I'm not gonna put one out there, let's just say it's ABC Company. If they give you the best bid at 2.5 or 1.2, then it would be the same exact deal. But the risk that you have is that ABC Company is not gonna bid if it's 1.2, so now it's XYZ Company that would have been the second bidder at 2.5, they're now the winner at 1.2. Are they gonna be the same interest rate? That's the risk. You're gonna lose a couple of the bidders, and your risk is whether that bidder was going to give you the best interest rate if you go down too low. Just in theory, I will say, like, and I know this, it depends on, there's a lot of opinions on this. I know I'm a debt advisor, so I'm biased in this, but you have to make a decision on what makes sense to debt finance. And I'll let Anthony speak to the road stuff here in a second on what you're targeting here. But what we kind of talk about with communities is that it has to be different from your personal life. I myself am very debt adverse too in my personal life. In municipal world, it's different. A couple things to keep in mind. Now, it may be project specific, like Mayor Pro Tem has said, maybe that we don't want to do roads and we want to do cash funding with roads. That's a perfectly valid opinion. Some communities look at it and say, well, maybe we couldn't get this amount of work done this year because we don't have the cash to do it, so let's do it and get it all done at once. Some communities look at it and say, well, the people that are paying the debt on this debt are going to be the ones using the asset. So therefore, the people that are going to be using what was it, an ice rink? Or what was the skate park? Thank you. I was looking at the ice rink earlier. That's on my mind, I guess. Skate park and the roads, and potentially the roads, and maybe the Clinton River Trail. The taxes that are being paid, that are being used to pay for the debt, are the people that are currently contributing to taxes and the people that are currently using that asset. So that helps, some communities justify why they might issue debt for a certain asset, but lots of opinions on that. I'm gonna pull Anthony in if I can on, this happens a lot, I will say, with communities that are in this situation where you're trying to figure out how much to borrow, and you don't wanna necessarily do two borrowings and have this process 2 times where you gotta pay all the fees and stuff. So this is very typical to say, we know the amount we need and we're just gonna use the excess on this project if we can get a grant for this project. But I don't know the specific roads or anything, so.
Yeah, and, just to kind of go with that, so on the grant funding side for the trail, we talked about that. And during goals and objectives too, just time-wise, on calendar year, we're not gonna really know until more towards the end of this year on what the outcomes of some of the grants are and what the applications are, especially any state-wise, you're not gonna find out till December, till they start announcing. So there is a part of that that says, okay, well, we're gonna always try to get as much grant funding as we can for these projects, but if we can't, are we still gonna move forward and do the project or not? Like the trail, for instance. So that's where we look at the list that we have in goals and objectives, everything from the ladder trucks to the fiber connection to all of these big dollar projects. And we say, okay, that just becomes the next thing. Like when we rank the projects, we have that priority list, right? We have a ranking of these are where the next dollars are gonna go. All you're gonna do is you're just gonna take it out like, oh, we got grant funding from that, and it just moves it down the list, and now you're doing the next round of projects with that, so.
So from my perspective, as a financial advisor that deals with interest rates all the time, the way I view this is a 4% or less borrowing cost is a pretty good rate, historically, as well as it looks like in the future. I don't think rates are going to go much lower. And knowing how our portfolio of the general fund is invested, we're making more than 4% on it. So, you know, in my mind, it's a question, do you cash fund from the general fund or you do some bonding? So I'm in support of this bonding, and I'm not in support of a smaller bonding because it's spreading the cost over too small of a number. Counselor Sage.
So given the time frame you just mentioned regarding the grant, would we be bonding for something and then holding the 1.3? I don't want to just start improving roads with the 1.3 and have nothing left for the trail.
Hold.
Okay.
Yeah, and that would be how we would look at it, that part for the trail, we would be hanging on to. We know Community House and Skate Park, we're ready to start building that immediately, so those funds would immediately be gone. So we'd have, you know, half of the money's already gonna be spent. Then that next piece, it would look more time-wise, because we're not gonna do construction in the winter. So having the proceeds in April, we control the dates, right? We set when we want to do the issuance. We don't push it off a month, May, June, whatever it is fine. Then we'd use the balance of that. Let's say we wanted to do the trail fix with it. We couldn't get that last 1.2 in funding from grants. We get all the notices at the end of the year. We have the list of all the ones that we got. And then we have, we weren't able to get that last 1.2. Now it's, okay, great, the money's there for it, start the construction in springtime of '26. And then now we have the funds already to go and complete the rest of it and use the rest of the funds up with it.
But Treasurer and Bond Counsel, there is an end date where we have to allocate any of these bond proceeds.
Yeah, so you have 3 years from the date of issuance to spend your bond proceeds without some type of tax issues with respect to restricting the yield on the investments. We've never really had to deal in the last 10 years with arbitrage, but now we have to deal with it, as the mayor had said. What that really means is, again, the expectation is the yield on the bonds is gonna be somewhere in the 3s, maybe 4%. You're likely gonna earn more than that in your construction fund, right? So you have tax-exempt bond proceeds going into a construction fund that you're going to invest until they're spent. And you're gonna earn presumably more than the interest rate, the bond yield. The IRS says you can keep up to the bond yield, but you're gonna have more, the arbitrage, the dollar amount above that, the interest rate above the bond yield is considered arbitrage. Now, the nice thing is that you're gonna be exempt from any arbitrage rebate because this issue is less than $5 million. And I'm assuming you expect to issue less than $5 million in calendar year 2025. So the IRS says now, in those circumstances, this is such a small issue, you're not gonna earn that much, we really don't care about you. You're you meet the small issuer exemption.
Sounds good.
But so that means that you don't have to worry about rebating that difference. Whatever you earn in your construction fund is proceeds that can go to project costs. That doesn't mean that you still have an infinite period of time to spend the proceeds. You still have 3 years from the date of issuance to spend those proceeds without having to yield restrict the investments in that construction fund.
Thank you. Counselor Jones?
Just a quick follow-up on the fees, because in considering if we do this in pieces, you mentioned fees. What are the fees? What are they? Percentage of what you get, or, because it makes a difference on the decision of, well, should we go for a little more than?
Yep, so, that project scenario shows you, at the bottom there, it says estimated bond cost of issuance.
See if I could, zoom this in a little bit, hold on.
This is assuming the 2.5 million, this assumes 2.6 because we added the cost of issuance on top, but that's the overall fees. Realistically, I mean, I would strongly advise that you do not issue twice I would strongly say don't do a 1.2 and a 1.3 because although our fees are not gonna be double, it does take a lot of time to do this stuff, and there's a lot of stuff done behind the scenes that is involved into those fees. It would not be quite the same like 24,850 times 2, but it would not be in half. You're not gonna have 12,000. I assume the same for Tom. There's a lot of costs that go into no matter the project size, like it's a lot of time invested no matter what, if it's 1.2 or 1.5 or whatever. So strongly advise that you don't break it up into 2 bonds. If you go slightly lower, it'll go slightly down on some of the fees. The bond rating will be cheaper, the discount, which is, you can see is a not to exceed 1% of par. That's a not to exceed, so the bidder that wins it can't really I've never seen it where they charge the maximum. They have to be competitive in order to win the bid, so their fee for the resale is going to be a not to exceed of 1% of par, but it's typically lower than that. But that would go down. Newspaper publication doesn't, a lot of the other stuff is just the same cost no matter what the par.
Yeah,
So,
it makes
yep.
sense. Thank you.
Yep.
Counselor Trent?
Yes, I'm assuming it's not like a mortgage where you can pay some back without a penalty. Is that
Good
different?
question. So you have, on a 20-year bond issue, you're gonna have a 10-year call. So, the first 10 years are gonna be non-callable, where you just have to make your regular payments every 6 months. From year 11 on, you can do as you please. You can refinance, you can pay it down in part or pay it down in whole.
Okay.
Yep.
And I would like to make a comment about the grant process. I have found it very, very rare that they don't ask you to do some kind of matching fund or, I would just like to throw that in. That's very rare. Maybe there is an angel investor foundation that I don't know about.
Thank you. So for council, is there a motion on this topic? We can deliberate once we have a motion on the floor. Treasurer?
Mayor, if I could add one thing, just on the timing wise, so if we look at our current upcoming, goals and objectives, budget process and schedule and all that. So we know that we have the January 25th, we have the Saturday, budget workshop where we're gonna be talking about, with City Manager Vanda, we went over and we're gonna have the preliminary list of what we're looking at project-wise for capital and infrastructure. So we have a starting point. Asset Committee will then meet between then and March, and they typically present at the last meeting in March to City Council. So sometime between the 25th and the second meeting in March, the Asset Committee will then finalize the recommendations on all of the projects. So If you're looking at even the grant, and I echo the grant, being able to get 100% of it at all points is not super common, but we're always hoping for all of it. But that still gives you time up through the date, and even pushing it a month to say, okay, we don't need the decision till April is fine, because then we know exactly what projects we would have as like kind of a plan B. Let's say the grants do come in or they don't, we know what we're doing, and if they do come in, then we know what those projects are gonna be from Asset Committee, as well as finalizing for the budget for the upcoming 3-year plan.
Counselor Jones.
So then my question would be, specifically, skate park. If we are pushing the decision timeline and we want to get started on the skate park, is there a way to borrow from the general fund, knowing that the skate park piece for sure is going to be in the bond? Or is that
Right,
something?
if anything we start spending ahead of time would come just out of general fund, and then, Tom, is there a time limit or anything?
look back.
If we do it in spring before we do any issuances or anything, when can, if we, to give us the 500 back to general fund?
So the rules say, if the resolution is adopted tonight, you can go back 60 days prior to tonight to recover any capital costs on that you paid on the project. So certainly going forward, it's anytime you have a capital expenditure that you're making on the project that you want to reimburse for, a reimbursement resolution has to be in place within 60 days of that taking place.
Right.
So if the resolution gets approved tonight, any expenditure going forward would be covered under that reimbursement, and you can even go back 60 days from tonight's date to be able to reimburse for that capital expenditure. If it's soft cost like engineering or some type of design costs, you don't need a reimbursement resolution in place. It's really a hard cost like you've acquired land or you've paid a contractor for moving dirt or things like that. It's more of those types of costs versus your preliminary costs like engineering or design.
Perfect, thank you.
Counsel? Counselor King?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the issuance of the 2025 capital improvement bonds in a not-to-exceed amount of $2.61 million. Authorizing the city manager and finance director to proceed with all necessary steps for bond issuance, including engagement with legal and financial advisors, and further to bring back the bond authorizing resolution at the appropriate time following the expiration of the referendum period.
Excellent motion, thank you.
I thought it was 2.5.
Might have had some help.
It's 2.610, including the cost of issuance.
With that, okay. I support.
Do I have a support?
I support.
So Counselor Jones, you support the motion as stated by Counselor King?
I do.
Okay. Is there any other discussion or deliberation on the motion?
No.
City Clerk, the roll call, please.
Salvia,
Yes.
Vixen,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you. So the motion passes approving 2025 capital improvement bonds for $2.6 million.
Mayor, one more thing.
Just to add one little wrinkle.
After we vote?
No, this doesn't impact the vote.
Okay.
At least I don't think so. I hope not. So part of this is going to be for the community, is anticipated to be used for the community house. So the city owns that and it leases that property to the community house. So bonds are tax exempt for 2 reasons. They're issued by a governmental entity and they're used for governmental purposes. There's a limit as to what can be considered private use of a tax exempt facility. So any lease of a facility that the city tax exempt finances needs to meet those requirements. The good thing is that the community house is a 501c3 corporation, so they are themselves a tax exempt entity. If they were a for-profit entity, we would not be able to do the bonds as tax exempt. They would have to be taxable because a for-profit entity would be getting the benefit of a tax exempt finance facility. But to do that, there's one additional step that we really need to do to have the bonds issued for that purpose. And that's to actually do a public hearing that we would probably due right before the bond authorizing resolution that says the city intends on issuing bonds for this purpose. And part of the proceeds will be used for making improvements to the community house, which is leased to the Rochester Community House, a 501c3 corporation. That's just part of the tax rules associated with a tax exempt facility being utilized by a governmental entity leasing a facility to a 501c3. Obviously, we don't do this for other buildings that the city operates exclusively on its own because it's government doing a government function. But a 501c3 component to it, because of the lease, we just have to add on this additional layer. We are also working with the with the community house to make sure that their 501c3 status is, we have their letter from originally when they got it from the IRS, and then we get an opinion that they're currently constituted as a 501c3, because that's the tax exempt basis for that component of that bond, of the bond that's being used for those proceeds, as opposed to the rest of the proceeds, which are going for straight city improvements. So I just wanted to layer that in to the extent that we're gonna need to do a public hearing as part of the authorization. You're not surprised by that, and I just want to let you know that that would be part of the process.
That makes sense. So the purpose of the public hearing is for anyone to step forward saying, time out, the community house is not a 501c3.
Or really to say that we don't want the city spending money on the community house.
Okay.
I mean, so there's the petition process, this is part of actually issuing the bonds in total. That's part of but then there's this separate public hearing that's required under the tax rules for the 501c3 component of it.
Right, which I don't expect, because everyone's been clamoring just the opposite. Please spend money on the community house, so thank you.
Sure.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item B. This is mayoral nominations / appointments for the compensation committee. So we had some discussion at council about a compensation committee. In your packet is information. We have a committee that has 2 members, Jana Yazak and Mike Plesh, and there are 3 openings. We had 6 applicants, so we had twice the number of applicants, which is fantastic. This is a mayoral appointment, so I plan to appoint the 3 new individuals. I'm hoping council will confirm those nominations tonight so that this committee can get to work. From the time of appointment, they have 45 days to complete their work, so they will.
From their first meeting. Not
Okay,
the appointment.
45 days from the first meeting, so I know city clerk has been working the back roads and finding out if these individuals could be available in January, early February for a meeting.
Correct.
So hopefully they can meet quickly. They then have 45 days to come back to us. We, by the rules, have to accept what they state. The only way we can decline it is with a majority vote. So is that clear to everybody? All right, so the nominations for the compensation committee, I feel like I'm at the Oscars. I would like to nominate Margaret Shepard, Mike Mackins, and Blake Pollock. So we have 3 applicants. Some of those applicants are on other boards and commissions, and I would encourage the other 2 to apply for some of the other opportunities we have in the city. I will be meeting with the city clerk next week because there are some other openings, so we may be addressing those shortly. So those are my nominations, and council, what do I need? Do I need a nomination to do it as a slate?
Yes, a motion, second, and a vote for
Okay.
those to be confirmed by council tonight.
Council?
I would make a motion to nominate the 3 individuals that you just articulated in the presentation.
Thank you. Councilor Hauser, I have a motion.
I'll second that as
Councilor
stated.
Trent, second, as stated. City clerk, the roll call?
Before I do the roll call, I will correct one statement. So you said that your rejection would have to be a majority. Majority is only 4. 2/3 is what it would required, so that would mean 5.
Thank you.
Just, okay,
I was looking for that word and couldn't come up with it. Thank you.
that's okay. Salvia,
Yes.
Bixson,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes. Margaret, we look forward to hearing yours and the committee's report. All right, moving on to item C. Consideration to approve and award the contract to Spoon Ranch, Inc. to design and build a skate park. I believe this is going to the city attorney, who has been working on this contract.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Before you tonight is a revised agreement with Spoon Ranch. If council remembers, at its November 26th meeting, City Council considered the agreement and had some additional, expressed some conditional thoughts and concerns. We've taken those back to Spoon Ranch and asked if we could continue to work on the agreement to make additional adjustments to meet the concerns of City Council. Primarily, the issue that was sent back was council was not comfortable with the agreement as it was stated, agreeing to a $500,000 contract when it wasn't sure, quote, what it was getting for that money. And which is, part of this is, and it's a unique concept, the design and build contract. Part of the contract is to actually design it. But what we did is we listened to council's concern and worked and believe we have a solution, which is the form presented today, which is the contract is still $500,000, $500,000. But there's added in language into the agreement that after the design phase, then it would come back, it goes through its normal channels, but it would come back to City Council to review and to be the approving body for the design. And moreover, the process wouldn't continue on to the second phase, which is preparation of the construction documents, until City Council approves that design. So at any point after the design phase, it's up to City Council whether to proceed with the next stage. And so those are tasks that were added, task 1.7, so it's actually a task that was added. And then a similar task was added at the end of phase 2, which is the construction design phase, which is if City Council has to have a review and approval before it goes to phase 3, which is the actual construction. So while it's still one agreement, City Council is not locked into moving forward to any phase other than phase 1, which is the design phase, which if you look at phase 1, there's a myriad of tasks that they have to perform, getting do public vetting, have the meetings, actual draw it, design it, and bring it back to City Council for approval. So I believe that the form that it's in now does address City Council's concerns, that it is not locked into moving forward with any phase and can terminate the agreement after the design phase if it so chose. So if City Council is prepared to proceed, then the requested action is to have a motion to approve the agreement with Spoon Ranch as presented tonight and to authorize city manager to sign the agreement on behalf of the city. I am here to answer any questions to my ability.
Thank you. Councilor Trent, you have the floor.
Well, thank you. After reviewing the website and the question of, this isn't typical, we usually see the design like you would with a building. I did some further research, and beyond their website, I don't know how many people saw that, but they have done multiple projects across the nation, as we were told, and they are the premier skate park builders in the nation and have built them around the world. And I did speak with Vaughn, I don't know his last name. Gallagher, I'm sorry, and Vaughn Gallagher, who's been with us, who is one of the owners of the South Street Skate Shop, and he said that he would never want to work with a company unless they were one of the best in the industry. And so he gave them, obviously, their stamp of approval, and he was also on the committee. They have 30 years of experience. They have built already 2 in Michigan, Armada and Northville, and Chelsea they're going to build in the spring, and ours as well, I hope. And because I was very happy to learn all this. And I dug a little bit further just to explain the design build process. It's about budget management. And it is based on, after the client establishes a guaranteed maximum price during the construction phase, they lead this meticulous information gathering process, including in-depth investigation and detailed confirmation of the scope of work, because things can change. And I believe you me, I have done this in the website development world, and it is something done in the website development world on larger projects. So this ensures a design that they create is feasible and within the guaranteed maximum price. And there are no surprises or opportunities for change orders. I'm sure we've all heard of those in the building industry. So they will waste no time integrating their construction team into this design process, ensuring that they're designing for efficient and intelligent construction. So they usually don't do a phased process. So after doing that further research, I do appreciate that they're doing this, especially at the level of expertise that they have. Plus, I like to say I am very excited about this project, because skateboarding is not only an Olympic sport, as we now know, but it can service a demographic in our community that is underserved, our youth. One day, Rochester may send an Olympic champion to the Olympics, and it might be because of this skate park. So thank you, Councilor Jones, for your years of work on this and on the committee and the Splat team as well, as I know that they have told me they've worked 11 years on this, and the people and the people who never gave up. And last but not least, you can go to your post office and order stamps that are the art of the skateboard. So you can support them in that way as well. So,
Counselor, is that a motion?
yeah. Well, I don't know if somebody wants to, we have, yeah,
Okay.
I wanted to, yeah.
With great excitement.
Yeah,
I would like to motion to approve and award the contract to Spawn Ranch Incorporated for design and build of the skate park.
So motion by Jones, support by Trent.
Say the amount.
Oh, the amount
Oh,
is not
yes,
to
for
exceed 500,000, and this is to Spoon Ranch, and authorize city manager to sign the agreement. Any other deliberation or discussion on the motion? Counselor Hauser?
If I may, Mr. Kratz, City Attorney, thank you very much for going back to the contractor and identifying some of the concerns we had. I think this is a great resolution and solves a lot of the concerns that we had previously. So thanks for doing that. Sure thing.
Counselor King?
I was just going to say, along the same lines, I think it's great that we were able to break it into the two phases. I like knowing what we're going to get for the city's money and for taxpayers' dollars. I think we found a really great company from everything we've seen about them. But, is it a 10,000 square foot? Is it 50,000 square foot? It's going to be really nice to be able to see what that is ahead of kind of authorizing the full dollars. And I think the amount upfront is very reasonable as part of the project cost to do so. So I'm very pleased with this. Thank you for the patience in working with them. And I also think with great outcome, we have a longer warranty period as well. Yes. So this is really favorable. Excited for it.
Excellent.
And I just want to go on record that Spawn Ranch has been incredible to work with. We have gone back to them numerous times. I think we've been a little unusual with a lot of our requests, and they've been great, right?
Agreed.
So our first relationship with them has been very positive.
That's wonderful. City Clerk, roll call, please.
Salvia,
Yes.
Vixen,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes. Motion passes. Spoon Ranch, let's get going. All right, moving on to item D, which is discussion of Robert's Rules of Order. Back to the city attorney.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. I was asked to just kind of give an overview of Robert's Rules of Order, which is a parliamentary procedure, which this particular set of procedures is commonly known throughout the world, actually. And it just talks about how it's not geared specifically to municipalities, but just boards generally. But cities have adopted it, as many corporations, nonprofits. It's a procedure and a process of conducting meetings appropriately giving reverence to the process and as far as into how just to run effective meetings. And so I did take a look through and try to give City Council some materials regarding Robert's Rules of Order, but then also I wanted to just kind of go through some of our ordinances. We do have some newer people, and it's a good refresher for those who've been on board for a long time as far as how do meetings, how do we get to the procedure, how do we get the order of procedure, what can go in consent agenda, what, when is public comment, those types of things. So I tried to bullet point just some comments that, not necessarily that I see at city council meetings, although some do arise that we're like, you know what, maybe it's time that we comment on those. So, because why would you know if you've never been through it, right? So, just wanted to highlight a few things. Overall, all city council meetings are subject to the Open Meetings Act, which has its own set of rules, obligations, requirements, voting, closed sessions that we've talked about here and there. Deliberations always have to be an open session unless it qualifies to be a closed session situation, which are fairly rare. But one of the things that I included in there that I always find helpful, and they update this periodically, is the state of Michigan puts out an Open Meetings Act handbook. And I feel it to be a very useful tool and easy to read. And it just kind of gives the overall view and how things, the reasons for going into closed session. What can you do? What can't you do? What are the requirements for minutes and posting the meetings? And, a lot of that stuff you don't have to worry about as a city council because administration and the clerk takes care of a lot of that. But you should be aware that it's not just, hey, we're going to have a meeting. There's a lot that goes through that. So I felt that, getting that to you was a good idea, and I look through it every once in a while as well, just to make sure that we're still, the updates happen or just a refresher on things. So I encourage you to read through that. Also, our city code has a number of items in there that you should be aware of. One is, in section 2-57, of the code, the public has a right to speak on listed agenda items at the time the agenda item is being discussed. As you know, you have a public comment period where people can talk about anything they want to that's not on the agenda, and public is always encouraged to limit that time to things that are not on the agenda, because there's agenda time to speak on those things as well. And it should be, according to that section, and before city council deliberates. So the procedure that it typically would happen is the matter is introduced, whether it's me or Anthony or somebody introducing the particular agenda item, and then before deliberations. So it's a way for public comment on those if they wish. Then city council deliberates, then city council takes the action. And a lot of that, it's been a pretty fluid, if people, I'm telling you the procedure, sometimes those steps get blurred a bit, but that's the goal in these things. So one thing that I've noticed is a good refresher for city council is the agenda item is actually called public comment. And the reason I specify that is that some cities are a little bit more engaging back and forth, and Rochester is one of those communities that engages back. If someone has a comment in public comment, it really is an opportunity for them to make comments, not necessarily to engage, going back and forth to debate at the dais about this or this. Now, it's not wrong to say, hey, maybe city manager, can you look at that issue? But also, city council doesn't have to respond. A perfectly fine response is thank you for your comments. If they say, can you put this on a future agenda, or if city council feels that, maybe we should look at that in the future, that can be an actual agenda item. City council can so set that. But you don't have to feel that you need to do a back and forth, make decisions during public comment. It's listed as public comment for a reason. The public doesn't dictate the agenda. and items that may be on the agenda. If city council decides to talk about it further, that's fine, but don't feel you have to. Let's see here, there's, on occasion, there would be topics that come up that has a great number of members that, the public want to speak, and sometimes these comments can get quite lengthy, 15 minutes, we've seen, 20 minutes, and so, city council has the ability to limit the time, for those comments, per person. A lot of communities do that. A frequent one is 3 or 5 minutes, and a particular topic. And some are very, I'll say, aggressive about, thank you, your time is up, have a seat. In fact, I've been at meetings where a microphone may have been turned off at a certain point. So, it's not necessarily meant to discourage public comment, but it also allows for an more efficient meeting. If things keep moving, people know that they have a certain amount of time. And that's why if you're going to have one, you can do it and set it in advance so everyone knows. Otherwise, if people have, 6 pages, of comments they want to make on a topic, maybe they have to summarize it and make it a little shorter because they have 3 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever city council may wish. So it does, plus what it does, especially when we have public comment at the beginning of a meeting, tonight's agenda isn't super long, but sometimes you have quite lengthy agendas. And if you spend 45 minutes in public comment period, there's a lot of people who are waiting to have their actual agenda items heard. And I know of one community that has a particular time set up. I believe it's the city of Livonia. They offer up a half an hour of public comment at the beginning of the meeting, near where we do it here. And at the end of that, they'll say, thank you, that's enough of public comment for now. Anybody wishing to be heard additionally has to wait to the public comment period at the end. So it does allow for some comments, but not take up an hour, hour and a half just in public comment before you actually get to your agenda. So again, this is not something that city council has to do, but I'm telling you because that discussion comes up on occasion. Should we or shouldn't we have time limitations? Procedurally, and I know that a number of you read this memo because I've already observed you guys changing how you do things quite well, and it was a tear in my eye of joy. So there's a number of, the proper procedure would be when an item is called, it'd be introduced, and I know it seems a little awkward, but the proper procedure would be to move it for approval and give a second, and then deliberate. And so I think one of the mental things to get past is just because you move the approval doesn't mean you support it at that point. It just means that it's worthy to have discussion and deliberation. You can vote against your own motion. That's all it does is it gets it proper procedure to get to the point of deliberation. So the proper procedure would be to move it, and actually say what the motion is. I do it. A lot of people do it, say so moved. And it's so much easier because everyone knows what you're talking about, but it's actually better to say, I move approval of the meeting minutes of December, whatever. So, and then support, and then you deliberate, and then, or have comment if there is any, then deliberate, then make your decision. So that would be a thought on that. As I talked about the so moved, do that. The order of procedure, there was a question on that as to what can go. City Council, or Rochester has a consent agenda, and one of the issues was, well, what should go in there? And those are generally a list of items that are routine, that don't typically take a lot of discussion, and you can get them through with a simple motion that doesn't take much deliberation. Now, just because something's on there doesn't mean that it has to stay on there. And what I mean by that is, if there's 4 things on there and everyone is agreeable that we're just going to move approval on all of them, the way it shows up in the minutes is item A, move, second, approve. B, just because you do it in one motion, it shows up in the minutes as separately adopted items. So from making it clear, don't worry about, Leanne will take care of that. But if you just say the fourth one that you really want to talk about it, because, you know, one of the things that I hear up here, and not that it's wrong, but I was asked to do this, so, is, you know, we have 4 things on the consent agenda. Well, I want to talk a minute about this, and we spend 10 minutes talking about an item on the consent agenda. And then it ends up getting resolved, and it could just be comments, or thank you for coming, or what. But the proper procedure from Rochester's perspective is to pull that matter from the consent agenda. It can either be, you can either say, hey, Mayor, I'd like to pull item so-and-so. You can do that before the meeting, and then the mayor can say, okay, well, we're going to pull this one from the consent agenda. Or it can be at the time, I'd like to pull item B from the consent agenda. Fine. So then the motion would be, I approve items A, C, and D. You're right, so from the consent agenda. And so then once that goes through and gets approved, then the mayor will then say, okay, now we're going to bring back item B. Councilmember so-and-so, you wanted that pulled. Go ahead, you have the floor. You know, I mean, that's the type of thing. So you still want to approve all the consent agenda items that aren't pulled first, and then you can have that discussion versus a discussion in the middle of the consent agenda. Because then the minutes will actually show so-and-so pulled item B from the consent agenda, and then a discussion, and then what happened there. And then some other little things that, but, you know, I was reading through the materials, and it's like just a good reminder that, you know, people should only talk when they're recognized and they have the floor for discussion. And how you're recognized is, you know, indicate to the mayor that, hey, you know, I'd like to speak on this, and you'll be recognized, and then that person will, quote, have the floor. And I've heard that term. Well done, Mayor, already today. So rather than just someone else next to them starts talking about the same thing, and versus, you know, it may seem too conservative, or parliamentary. Yes, thank you. But if you're asking what the proper procedure is wait till you're recognized by the mayor, and not just have a, you know, conversation between council member so-and-so said something, then the one starts talking, and the mayor's like, you know, kind of figure out who should be talking right now, who shouldn't be. And the same goes for the audience. And our audience is actually very good about not just talking from the audience. And I've been in a number of meetings where there's a lot of, I was going to say yapping, but talking from the audience out of turn. Our audience is very good about coming up to the podium, being recognized, identified. So that's been good.
Helps the minute taker.
Oh, absolutely. And I know it's videoed and everything, but it does help the minute taker to keep things in order. It's like, and who's talking? So if it's council member A is talking, but then council member C starts talking, then the minute taker, the clerk is, she's like trying to figure out who said what, and, you know, trying to keep that all straight in the minutes. It really does help her out quite a bit. City council is in charge of setting what the order of business is, and that's in section 2-51. Specifically says the order of the business of city council shall be set by resolution of city council, right? Very obvious. But if there's changes to the order that you would like, then city council can change the order. And what I mean by the order is, you know, one item for discussion is, do you want the minutes to be included in the consent agenda? There's nothing wrong with it. It's still an action item. That's, the clerk and I talked last week about, we're all on the same page on that. So whether it's check registry, you know, I can't tell you the last time I had a comment about the check register, right? So maybe that's an item that could get moved up. The minutes could get moved up into consent agenda. Really, those routine things that don't typically garner a lot of discussion can be moved up there. So if city council, for instance, wanted to move those 2 things, for example, up there, then it would be appropriate for city council tonight or whenever to make, I move to change, you know, to have the minutes be reflected as part of the consent agenda. And then it passes, and then you'll see on the next agenda, the minutes will be up there. So those aren't major things, but if you want to adjust some things, or things have been swimming around your head about how we can make things more efficient, those can be one of them. I think I did put in the packet, for those who are one-pager fans or cheat sheet fans, I did find the city of Charlotte did put out a Robert's Rules of Order cheat sheet, which was, so it should be in there as well. Just to, it's not magical, but it just kind of tells you, some types of motions, this, every motion has 6 steps, and it kind of goes through it. It's not overly complicated, but obviously it was important enough for another city to put something together. So I know the city manager has something to say.
Madam Mayor, if I
City
may,
manager.
I want you to know that for the appearance and consistency, we're talking to Planning Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, even at City Beautiful, we're trying to get them more on track, because there are people taking minutes. And for Rose on the Planning Commission, it's taped, but it's, when they all start talking, you can't hear who isn't, she can't figure out who's speaking. So we're going to remind all the boards and commissions, it is a policy, like Jeff said, it's not just government, it's how you run meetings, and it's very efficient. And once people get in the rhythm, that we already started at City Beautiful, is like, let the chair recognize you and then speak, and then we'll know what the point is. It doesn't stop anybody from talking, it just makes it more orderly. And I know a couple council people say, it's hard for the mayor sitting there, Mayor Bixson, you had to go through this all the time. You don't know where they're looking at. So we can help with that. Lee and I can, if we see somebody at the other end, we can help, point to somebody if you need to. So make sure that everybody's recognized at all times. So that's a lot to handle when you're trying to do an agenda, run the meeting. I understand that, but we want everybody to be recognized for sure, so.
Thank you. Any questions for the city attorney on this? Counselor Jones, you have the floor.
Thank you. So I know that this has come up kind of in the Planning Commission meetings, where there'll be a citizen that will be at the microphone for a long period of time. So I assume, as you just stated, any decisions we're making here on that would roll over to the other committee meetings, because I do agree with, like the Board of Education, they state you have 3 minutes. And I feel like if that's something we feel we should do, I would like that to be the consistent policy, not at some meetings we let somebody talk for 15, at other meetings, because there was a lot of people talking, oh, it's only 3 minutes tonight. I'd just like to throw that out for consideration. And then my second thought on all that is allowing people to come up numerous times. What is the thought process on that? Is it you have public comment, you do it right now, you have 3 minutes. That's it. What are your thoughts? Just
I do have some
for
thoughts.
discussion. Yeah.
So I would say that each board should be presented with this. This was not meant to necessarily be city council, you guys are doing it poorly, and here's.
Oh, sure,
it's just general.
it's not taking
So
away.
I would suggest that. Now, what I would say is that, if you're gonna put a limit on things, typically that wouldn't be applied to the actual presenter of a topic. So let's say there's a developer at Planning Commission that's going through it.
Oh, no,
This is purely.
Citizen comment is what I'm thinking.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was
Yeah,
there.
that would be nice for the developer. You're done.
Right. What was the second part?
Coming up numerous
Oh,
times
yeah.
to the microphone.
So obviously the spirit is you get a certain amount of time to speak. Now if someone wanted to, so I would say during your public comment period, they have whatever time limit you give them. There shouldn't be coming up back again and say, yeah, but this, because it's not, remember, it's not a dialogue. It shouldn't be a debate situation. You should get your statements out.
Right.
And yes, someone could trigger something by something they say that they would want to come up and say again, well, you had your opportunity, okay? And that's one of the reasons. Another part of that is some people don't necessarily like the public comment before the deliberation, because you want to hear the deliberators and then comment about it. But that's not the proper procedure. Proper procedure is everyone talks, presents, has comments, and then it comes to this body for decision. So it really shouldn't be, oh yeah, then you have 6 people coming up all through the deliberation. Should be closed at that point. And I say should, that's proper procedure. Obviously, if it's somebody who said, oh, I forgot something, and they really didn't talk much the first time, I would say, obviously, let everyone go through, and this, whether it's at the table here or in the audience, let people talk first, whoever wants to, before repeat comments. But, trying to avoid, I'm going to speak for 2 minutes and 50 seconds now, and then after this next person's talk, I'm going to go up and talk for another 2.5 minutes. That's, you had your chance. It's public comment.
Purview of the chair to extend it if they feel appropriate.
That's right. I mean, this is not a hard, like, you can never talk past that time. If there's a reason to allow it, but as a general expectation, this is what you get, and, you know, you don't have to be rude and say you're done, but you say your time has expired, please wrap up, or, you know, just be done, or,
Okay, thank you.
So from my standpoint, I would really like to see us set as a council some guidelines around public comment, possibly 3 minutes, along with an opportunity if someone feels they have to give a greater presentation, some avenue to request that, but limit that and just set that as a policy so we're not setting this in a time where we're talking about something that may be more emotional or heated. So I would hope that council would make a motion around that. So that's my one comment on that. So Counselor Hauser.
I have a question for city attorney, and, you know, for planning commission, let's just use that by way of example. I would say 95% of the meetings are rather unremarkable in a sense of the attendance, but there's always going to be a few, for instance, the Solaronics, you might remember it was a packed house. And as the chairperson, someone who's running that meeting, does the chair or does that board have the ability prior to that meeting to say, hey, I'm walking in here, this place is filled to the rafters. Can I establish at that particular moment, before the meeting starts, hey, we're going to have 5 minutes for each person? Could you do it by meeting, or does it have to be a universal policy that it's across the board?
What I would say to that is you could do that. I would suggest that a consensus be given at the beginning of that meeting, not just the moderator of that meeting, to say, you know, listen, we see, you know, 50 people who are passionate about this issue. So if they don't already, if the board doesn't already have a 3 or 5 minute, whatever time limit, you could do that, because you can always go, I'll say on the fly and say, listen, but I wouldn't do it in the middle of the discussions. I'd say, listen, we want everyone to be able to feel free to talk, and without this meeting going until 2 a.m. So we're gonna impose, if there's not already one, we're gonna impose a 3 minute time on that. But I would say I would bring it to versus I would bring it to kind of a vote at that body to do that. One thing associated with that also, if you wanted to let someone talk longer, for instance, I've presented at cities before where, I'll say as a courtesy, but I know that they had limits, so I've given it to the board to say, I speak for, there's 20 people in this neighborhood here. I speak for this one. So we could either have everyone speak for 3 minutes, or if you give me 10 minutes, that will cover 20 people. And the board is always like, we want that one. Go.
That's a good negotiation.
Right. So it's like, not that you're threatening, but you're just saying, listen, we can each do our own little part, or I can just summarize it, and that's going to cover 20 people in this room. And that's been pretty effective. I've seen it, I've done it, and I feel it to be effective tool if there's that spokesperson, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Counselor Trent?
Yes, I have a question about presenters. You get on the agenda, and I've seen that time can vary. Anywhere from 3 minutes, which I think is disrespectful. I think if you get on the agenda, you should have more than 3 minutes to speak. I would push back on that.
On the agenda.
On the agenda. If you're on the agenda, how much time do you get? Because some presenters have been told 3 minutes. I won't name names, but they were told 3 or 5 minutes, and they did not have time to give all of that in 3 or 5 minutes. So should we set a time for presentation, or does it depend on the presentation, obviously we can't stand it.
For my part, I don't support that. I'm looking to address public comment and have a standard policy, so the expectations are out there and set. But in terms of the agenda, it depends on the agenda item.
But if they've been asked to be put on the agenda, then they should be able to state how much time they need. Yeah, okay.
Well,
Mayor Pro Tem.
I mean, all these are complicated questions, but I mean, you know, you don't want to give somebody, just because they're on an agenda, an hour either. councilman, you gotta have some things. I agree with a lot of what Jeff said, thank you for that. To me, the issue with the 3 minutes is, like Rochester, it's, either way, it's hard. You know, Rochester Hills does the 3 minutes, they were very aggressive, and to me, that engenders negativity. You know, they literally cut you off mid-sentence. And I don't agree with that. Now, we occasionally have people go on too long, but I don't think it's a major problem. So I guess right now, and then it puts the chair in a bad position. So, I would not support the 3-minute thing right now.
Counselor.
I also think if we're putting policies in place, and it's just something for further discussion, I agree. I think Jeff mentioned this also, and I've sat on other boards where there is not a back and forth. Because I have felt like when there's a back and forth, it usually goes in the wrong direction. So I think some boards state in the beginning, we will appreciate the public comment, we will not be commenting back. Someone will get back to you. Just so there's not an expectation, because then it's like, well, no, sometimes it's just not, yeah.
I agree, and I will try to, when we have public comment, make sure I state that these are public comments, and there will not be a dialogue or discussion from council.
Okay.
Just to set the expectations. I remember sitting there in the audience and wondering, how come they're not saying something?
Right,
So
exactly.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Counselor Trent.
So I think 3 minutes is not always long enough, but can it be like Congress? So they do their 3 or 5, do they do 5 minutes and then they ask for like 1 minute more? I mean, to just get some structure or, some rules around it. Like, this isn't unlimited, so
Right.
be careful how you ramble on. Do your homework, type it up, and be concise.
I'm good with that. Counselor Sage.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to include the consideration of the minutes in the consent agenda.
We have a motion on the floor from
Support.
Counselor Sage to include the minutes in the consent agenda, support by Mayor Pro Tem. Discussion? City Clerk, please.
Salvia,
Yes.
Vixen,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Any other council actions? Okay, thank you. My only other comment I would like to make on that for council is I just appreciate everyone, the packets come out on Thursday nights. That's something that I read through in some of the different council procedures, timing of when the council packets come out. They come out Thursday nights. That gives everyone 2 working days to get with administration, ask questions, emails, calls, meetings, whatever it takes, to get those answers so that when we come to the meeting, we can just make our decisions. And again, all of this in my mind is to have meetings that are transparent and efficient. So I thank everyone for that. Moving on to item 11, which is receipt of various boards and commissions. So we have the Planning Commission. Counselor Hauser, you have the floor.
Sure. Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. This is the Planning Commission update. So last Monday, we had a presentation from Alan Smith, who went through the most recent versions of the project drawings and plans for the community house. The city, through its planner, had comments and asked for some clarification, and asked that some clarifications be made in the next iteration of the contract documents. Nevertheless, Planning Commission elected to move this project forward, and this matter will be set for public hearing at the next available meeting, possibly February, likely March. Additionally, on January 23rd, coming up next Thursday, there will be a joint session between City Council and Planning Commission to continue our discussion and implementation of our master plan in various zoning districts. Meeting will be facilitated by our city planner and our city manager. The idea being that everyone will be together to discuss what still needs to be done to finish up the rezoning, the classifications, and then implementing that into the master plan, and then ultimately bringing it back before, I think, planning and then possibly city council.
City
If I may,
Manager.
and the mayor asked me, tomorrow morning you will get a memo from me from John Jackson that will give you all this information. So we're giving you almost 12 days in advance of that meeting. So it'll be the master plan, the future land use plan. John's got a memo that'll really say what he's going to say in the joint meeting, but that you can digest it. You can call him or me before. So we want to get through that meeting and have everybody understand what the path forward is. We made that promise from staff, and John's done a good job discerning all the steps, put it in simply. It's complicated as heck, but it can be done appropriately if we just stay on that point together, and we'll all be on the same page after that meeting.
May I have one more comment? And Mr. City Manager, just to follow that point, this is to my colleagues, when you get that packet with that information, if you have any questions upon receipt, please reach out to Mr. Banda or Jeremy right away. So all those questions can be answered in advance of the meeting. So on January 23rd, when we're there, we can be as efficient as possible because we're going to have a limited amount of time. It's going to be a lot of people, and we want to make sure that it's as productive as possible. So all questions in advance, try and get over to Mr. Banda as soon as you can.
Yeah, I will, and Councilwoman Trent asked me about this. She had some ideas of other things like stormwater management. That's not what this meeting is about. Those would go to the Planning Commission through the normal process and say, I have a new idea. We do that all the time. If the ZBA gets 3 cases in front of them, they're like, you should relook at your policy. So that won't be the meeting to do that at, but we can identify those topics that would go back to the Planning Commission. This is to get the process of implementing the master plan new districts. That's what we're trying to accomplish, so we can get a new zoning ordinance that reflects those districts.
Great. Thank you.
Mayor.
Yes?
So you'll just have to apprise me of that process if I'm not allowed to come to the planning commission meetings. I don't know who to talk to. Who do I talk to? If I'm not, if I can't come to the
Manager, city manager.
Oh, yeah, you can make a recommend.
Putting any type of,
It's a recommendation that is for referral to that, here, you could do it here and say, I'd like to get consensus of the
Okay.
council to refer that to the Planning Commission for study.
Okay.
We do it all the time.
okay, you'll just walk me through the process, sounds good.
Perfect, thank you. Report from the Principal Shopping District, Counselor Jones?
Sure, I'm going to run through this really fast because they had a lot that was going on. Successes all the way down here. Festival of Trees, they had 8 charities, $5,000 went to the charities. Lanyap, we've already talked about, it was a great success. Plaid Friday, Small Business Saturday, 224 entries. There was a $500 shopping spree given out. Snowman Stroll, 12 snowmen. They will be selling this year's snowmen for $500 and some that we had left from last year for $250. Downtown Cookie Stroll, sold out in 3 minutes. Obviously very successful. Kris Kringle Market, the new layout, very successful. They were pleased. They're going to tweak a few things. I want to give a thanks from Raya. They let us work on Friday nights, and they give us the donation of the funds that are earned, so that is greatly appreciated. Holiday gift certificate promotion, they go all the way down the street, and they start waiting at 3 in the afternoon for those, so that did very well. Pancakes and PJs, 150 tickets were sold. The goals and objectives will be worked on at our February 5th meeting. Main Street Oakland County Annual Assessment is on February 4th. And Rewald & Architects will be at the next DDA meeting to present on the grant.
Great, thank you.
Oh, Frost Festival is next weekend, 1/17 and 1/18. And Foodie February starts on 2/1. Yikes, that's a lot.
Madam Mayor, could I just add one thing to that meeting that we talked about? Great report, actually. You take really good notes. They sold over $120,000 worth of gift certificates that go right back to town, not the giveaways. That's just straight up people walking in.
Wow.
I was there to have a meeting with Kristen. She had to run down the basement to get somebody a T-shirt. She's like, can you man the office? I thought, and 5 people came in and wanted, after Christmas, still wanted gift certificates. Like, do you guys go through this all day? That Love Local store there, I think they did $5,000 in one day selling the Christmas stuff that they have there. So it's a burgeoning business there, but that's a lot of money that went into people pre-buying their $50, $100, whatever you want to buy, and it can be used in all but 2 of the businesses downtown, which is pretty impressive.
That is great.
Impressive. Yeah.
Counselor Jones, you still have the floor for City Beautiful.
Yes, I do. Okay, so for City Beautiful, and then City Manager can say if I miss anything. We discussed our goals and objectives so we could submit our budget, which has been done. And some of the things we discussed and put some dollars against are a new resident packet that maybe we can describe what City Beautiful does and maybe put some seeds in there. We're looking at doing a map of the park, so all these great little areas we have in the park, people can go visit. I met with a scout leader today. We're going to do a nature sounds amplifier over by the creek, which is very exciting, and it's going to be an Eagle Scout project. I actually also talked to him about the elevated beds being an Eagle Scout project, and he said that sounded good. They're going to do elevated beds for a sensory garden over by the All Abilities Park, and there'll also be 2 picnic tables, I believe, that'll put there and a structure over it. The microforest is on the agenda, and funds were attached to that. Rain garden. So next year, lots going on. And we also, one of my goals has been bringing youth in front of City Council, and the mayor looked at the different committees, and as it turns out, City Beautiful, it's listed to be able to have youth involved in that commission, so I've already contacted RCS and the Green School person, and we're looking to bring 2 youth onto that committee, so.
Awesome, thank you, great report.
What's going on?
All right, any other public comment tonight?
Good evening again.
Hello.
Oh, go ahead. I'll wait.
I think maybe, is that Jane Turner?
Yep.
This is Jane Turner.
Hi, Jane.
Hi. Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a request for your budget. I went down Ludlow again, and I noticed for the umpteenth time that there are 2 electronic speed signs going each way. We need another one before the houses from Letica to Parkdale. And coming on, going east, we need one before Elizabeth. I look out my window and watch these cars going 45 miles an hour past my house, and I'm kind of tired of it. The other thing is, I'm a little confused about Robert rules. After each item on the agenda, is that open for public comment at that time? I guess that would be attorney's question.
Yeah.
According to the city's ordinance, the public has the right to have comment at the time, on an agenda item, at the time the agenda item is discussed.
Correct.
Okay, I think that's been missed a lot lately. And another quick question. I haven't been out a lot lately, but I came down Elizabeth to Parkdale today, and there's a big crater at that corner. What happened?
Don't know. We'll find out.
I don't think we're clear on that, on what happened there, so we'll have to find out. Thank you for your comments.
Okay, is it going to be repaired anytime soon?
If it's our road, yes. It might be the Miller Baldwin thing, I'm not sure, so.
I drove through there today.
Okay,
I didn't see one.
3 times.
I hope I stayed within my 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Happy New Year.
Bye.
So I guess to Jane's comment tonight, number 1, did you actually vote on the 3-minute? Didn't sound like it, only sounded like you did okay, all right. I would hope that you would not go to a 3-minute rule for our public, because we hardly ever have people come in, and when they do, and they actually really have concerns, and they really should have their voice. Otherwise, we're gonna wait to turn into other municipalities that are debt-free almost. Also, will you, on the master plan meeting, when you're doing that, are you planning on redoing it? And if so, are you adding in affordable housing into that?
It's up to
Thank you for your comment.
No, I can ask that question because it's
All right,
affordable or
city
attainable.
manager can
Right.
answer
No,
that.
so we're not, this
Yeah.
isn't to add anything new. This is not the master plan redo. This is just to adopt what was done in 2022.
Okay, the reason I brought that up, though, is because the county has money available for any city that wants to redo their plan and add in attainable housing or affordable housing into it, they will pay for that. So in the event you wanted to do that, it's there. So just in case you did not know.
Appreciate that, yeah, I did, thank
Okay.
you, yep.
Not a problem. And then also, okay, so you didn't do that. And then I would just say too that if you were to do a 3-minute rule, I would hope you would not discriminate against anybody because of who they are coming up to the platform. And let's see, what else? Oh, so seriously, I'm a little confused on the vote that took place for the bond. All right, and the reason I'm confused is it's going to cost 1.2 million in interest for $2.5 million. I don't know. Doesn't make logical sense to me. But then again, I'm not sitting there making those decisions tonight. I would just hope that no matter what, that if all the grant money and things take place like they're supposed to, the public knows 100% that we didn't waste $1.2 million in interest because you're on the hook for it for 10 years. And that's a 20-year number for the 1.2 million. That's a lot of money right now, but as they spoke of earlier, the lower the limit, same like with houses for a mortgage, you're gonna pay more money for the money. To me, I think 4% in interest right now is absurd for a non-essential service. And I know it's been a plan for a long time to do the community house and, you know, and everything else, and that's fine. I wish that we would just take that council and the city would just take the money out of the general fund to pay for the skate park and leave that out of it. So it actually gets completed properly. Everything else would be later on when we actually have the money. Because when you get a water bill, and your water bill has less usage, but it's more, we have a bigger issue that we need to look at as far as what we're doing with all of that as well. So there's a lot of essential services that need to be looked at financially that I think bond money could go a long ways in the future for. This is not one of them right now when you're paying half in interest to go ahead and do non-essential items. Thank you and Happy New Year.
Thank you for your comment. Is there any other public comment? All right, moving on to our agenda, general and miscellaneous, city clerk.
Yes, Your Honor, I do have an election update. So next agenda, already. You all know that this year is your odd year election. So next meeting, I'm going to have a written report for you on the process for petitions. The reason being is you will have your regular race that you all are familiar with, where the top 3 vote getters get the 4-year term, the 4th gets the 2-year term. We also have a second race that's going to be on the ballot. That's going to be to fill Doug Gould's unexpired term. That adds a little bit of a question on a petitions. So I asked the state last week, can candidates circulate petitions for both offices at the same time? And I was surprised to even find out that yes, not only can you circulate petitions for both offices at the same time, you can file for both offices with the caveat that you have to withdraw from one of them by the withdrawal deadline, which is 3 days later than the filing deadline. I will be sure to lay all that out in writing. That's why I wanted to put it on the agenda so it's available to the public. We'll put it out on the elections webpage, but I wanted to get ahead of this so that you guys are all aware of that. Also, I've had the question out whether or not your signatures can be the same or whether you have to get different signatures. So I haven't gotten an answer back from that. Hopefully I'll get that and I can include that in the report. The other caveat the other situation with this election will be that for the regular race, it takes 9 persons to file to trigger the August primary. With that other race on the ballot also, it only takes 3, and then that race would be the only one on the ballot if the other race didn't have 9. So yes, exactly. So that's why I wanted to get this information out to you guys so that you were all familiar. So it's only going to take 3 people to trigger a whole August primary for just that race. So 2 or less and it won't. So you guys need to have this information in front of you so that you can digest it. I'll have the petition packets ready for you so we can pass those out at the next meeting. And start going.
Thank you. And could I ask that you put that on the website as well,
Oh,
that information? 'Cause just so that
yes.
it's transparent to
Absolute,
everyone.
that's the goal.
Thank you.
Get it in front of you, it'll be in the packet, get it on the web, or not only on the front page, but on our election website, so last thing I want is any surprises that's gonna kick somebody off the ballot, because that, and I don't know if I said that, but if you don't withdraw, if you filed for both, you don't withdraw, then you get kicked out of both. And I won't let that happen to any of you. I will be knocking on your door. So, all right, so it's going to be interesting, but we'll get through it.
Doug. Okay. Yeah. City manager.
Yes, so 3 things. So Supervisor Dickinson's watching the meeting. He said that was like water main break in Elizabeth and Parkdale. It's a temporary fix, so they have to keep fixing it because they can't put hot patch on it, so.
When did it happen?
A couple of weeks ago. So it was a spot fix in the middle of the night, so he's aware of it, so we will have that taken care of permanently. You all saw what happened today at Home Bakery, and I think we need to have Heather Toko, we're gonna make a Heather Toko street or something. The economic impact of what has happened from a cake in her window, and you know she's done the Wolverine and Deadpool, and she's done
Barbie.
Barbie.
Thank you, Ken and
Barbie was a big
So
one.
she innocently thought this was cool. Took her 160 hours to build that cake. And when today we got a little bit of heads up from the Lions and from Amon-Ra himself that he was coming down, but we thought tomorrow. So we were prepared. Luckily, Chief George and his group in the DPW got everything out there a day in advance in case it snowed. And sure enough, there were steady 300 to 400 people, he said, all day in line. 2,000 people came through. By the end of the day, they had to shut it down. So she's trying her best to get everybody in, and you get to go in there and buy one item, and then you get your name into a raffle, and it's 3 more days. So, and Amaran just showed up today, went up top, thanked everybody. He was ecstatic, and we'll have some great pictures for the manager's report. He took with staff, and he was very, very gracious to everybody. He's very thankful. And other businesses has called the DDA and me, saying we've had the best 2 weeks in January. Everywhere's usually quiet. We send people on vacation, and it's like Saunders said they've never been this busy in the evening, and they're staying open. So I think that's pretty cool. And then lastly, I'd like to applaud our visitors, our residents, and the business. We had the nicest, quietest holiday season. No incidents at all, no fireworks, no anything. It was just, everything was behaved. We were in town, we went down New Year's Eve it was a hard time, Kim and I walked downtown at 10:30 and had a hard time finding something that was open. We're just kind of low-key, and everything was done appropriately, and Chief George was appreciative. The DPW guys were happy. They only had to go out during, I think, Christmas Eve to get some snow, but it was a great season. The lights were unbelievably efficient this year. They only had 2 lights sections that went out, and Dan's was out there all the time. So great season, everybody. Congratulations to everybody. A lot of planning goes into that. You hope for the best, right, and plan for the worst, and we didn't have the worst, so kudos.
And the lights have been extended.
They have, so, yeah, thank you for that. So Christy, when this whole thing happened, she got a hold of Dan's, and they're like, we got this. So they changed those red lights out in one day, put the blue ones up. Other people in the corner like, put blue on mine also. Had the lights already, luckily, so they did all of that. And then they decided to keep it on through the Super Bowl. And people, it's a fine line. Are you pushing too hard? No one said we're pushing too hard. People just, the smiles on people when you go down there on the weekends. We used to keep them on for 3 weeks up until was Fire and Ice on the weekends, but now they're open every night, and we're still packed every night. The Lions thing's part of it. But I told her, you better be prepared to make a Red Wing person on their head, and and a Piston guy dunking, and the Tigers, somebody hitting a home run. So that we could do worse, so it's awesome.
Absolutely. There's another really cool spot downtown that's blue and silver lights right there on 4th Street.
Yeah.
That's another good Lions photo spot, so if you're looking for one, just saying. City Attorney.
Nothing, thank you.
Counselor.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, just Happy New Year to everybody, and it's nice to see the skating out on the duck pond. That's an old Rochester tradition. It's good to see that again, and it hasn't been that way in a while. So
You're right.
The weather's
It's
just
cold.
right for, it's very cold out.
We ice fished out there yesterday. Jeremy and I and his dad went out and ice fished to see how it is, to see what kind of fish are in there. They're doing great.
That's it.
Nice, thank you. Counselor Sage.
Nothing this evening.
Counselor Jones.
Just a couple quick things. One, every year Raya does a event where we honor youth that have gone above and beyond in the community. We do it at the Calf Barn at Van Hoosen Farms. And so if you go to our website, Raya's website, if you know a student or child in town that's doing more than doing extra stuff, submit them for this event. I was asked by Rochester Community Schools to join a wellness committee. The state of Michigan requires school districts to have a wellness policy, and they're a few years behind on that. So on my subcommittee, it's Community and City Connections is a subcommittee I'm on. Amy Dramer, Michelle Butel, and Dave Word right now. We're on it, as well as getting some other community members. So I'm very excited about doing the work on this committee. And then also I have had as a goal connecting more with Oakland University as well as RCS. So I've reached out to Oakland University to see if maybe once in a while we could have a student come and present in front of us what's going on exciting at OU. So they're working on something that they'll be able to do for that in the future. And then as well as RCS, Karen Malsbury, who actually sits on the principal shopping district, she is Director of Career Readiness, and she does a lot in Rochester as far as the work-study programs, and they just started something new with med careers. She met with the police chief as well as the fire chief this last week, so I'm hoping to have her come in March to present what's going on with that. So that's it.
Wonderful, thank you. It's all
good
news.
stuff.
Counselor Trent?
Well, mine is an announcement. As many people may know, the Oakland County Parks 20-year millage passed last November. And what does that have to do with us? Well, apparently a lot, because the purpose of the millage was to expand, improve, operate, maintain, and acquire parks, recreational facilities, open spaces, lakes, rivers, water areas, and trailways to support nature education, recreational, outdoor educational and health programming to support partnerships for access to awareness of recreational lands and facilities. So at the end of December, Oakland County Parks Director Chris Ward contacted City Manager Banda and let him know that they would like to get into talks with us to invest in and improve our nature center known as Dinosaur Hill Nature Preserve, rather than create new parks and facilities. So what does that mean to us? Well, that means that if we partner with them, they will make capital improvements to our Dinosaur Hill, which are sorely needed. They will take on management and operations. They will do updates and to our 16-acre nature preserve, like restoring the wetlands and removing invasive species, which is sorely needed, and expand programming. But the good news is the City of Rochester would retain ownership of the preserve, Dinosaur Hill Nature Center, and the name. So they want it to be as seamless as possible. Mayor Salvia discussed how they worked with the OPC when the transportation millage passed, and it was a good experience, and it was seamless, and they're very happy with that. The OPC is very happy with that relationship and how that is working. So on the other hand, this gives the parks some of the benefits, Oakland County Parks, some benefits of economy of scale. One example is shared event management system or sharing similar programmings across multiple nature centers, such as they do with Red Oaks Nature Center. So they've done this before, and they're very good at it. They're interested in retaining staff and volunteers where possible, and they want this to be the least disruptive and the most beneficial. The county will establish a local board of advisors composed of residents, conduct a survey, and possibly hold a focus group to hear from the community. They want to bring the community along with them. From a Rochester's residents' perspective, the organizational change would be transparent and would also involve new resources and expanded services. This is a win, in my opinion, for the city and residents, and solidifies the legacy of Dinosaur Hill Nature Preserve. As a board member of the nonprofit Dinosaur Hill, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to each of the board members of Dinosaur Hill and their dedication to its mission. And I believe, and I know that the mission will continue and would, in my opinion, be better than ever.
Wonderful. Thank you, Counselor Trent. And I would just like to say thank you for your leadership and your engagement on this. Truly is going to be a win-win for the residents, for the city. So, discussions are underway, and, obviously we'll be sharing with council and the public as there's more to be shared. But our experience with transportation, this should be really a win-win for the city and the residents. So, Counselor Hauser.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Thank you. Just to wrap up here, if you haven't heard, the movie that will be filmed regarding our Rochester Fire Department sense of emergency has been funded. So the $20,000 that was needed has been raised. So really looking forward to that, and that's just going to recognize what our first responders do, and can't wait to have the red carpet somewhere, maybe at the Graham, maybe at the fire department, maybe downtown. It's going to be great. And then lastly, I'd just like to wish everyone happy Martin Luther King Day and happy Inauguration Day, and have a good evening. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
I thought it was kind of.